Whereas, in 1881, Frank E. Brown and Edward G. Judson established a new venture named
on November 26, 1888, the people of Livonia and Redlands Townships voted for incorporation of the new city of Redlands.
December 3rd, 1888, the Act of Incorporation was voted on and sanctioned to include a definition of the boundaries of the city.
Whereas, the Redlands District became known around the globe as the Washington Naval Growing Capital.
Whereas Redlands boasts such significant architectural treasures as the Lincoln Memorial Shrine, Kimberly Crest House and Gardens, the Maury
Redlands
Mansion.
hosts cultural events including the annual Lincoln Pilgrimage Parade, the Summer Music Festival at the Redlands Bowl, the Redlands Theater Festival, the Redlands Symphony, and community and athletic events.
More than 100 years, Redlands has been home to University of Redlands, go Bulldogs, a private liberal arts university consistently ranked among the best universities in the
Redlands
nation.
recognized the value of its diverse and well-known historic built environment with establishment of the Historic and Scenic Preservation Ordinance.
People of Redlands demonstrated the importance of preserving their community's history by founding organizations such as the Redlands Area Historical Society.
Redlands acknowledged the importance of celebrating its history by observing its Golden Jubilee anniversary in 1938, its 65th anniversary with Surrey Days in 1948, its Diamond Jubilee in 1963, and its centennial in 1980.
Be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Redlands hereby celebrates its quincentennial anniversary for the year beginning November 27, 2012, culminating on November 26, 2013, and encourages all residents to participate in scheduled year-long
witness whereof we hereunto affix our signatures and official seal of the City of Redlands on this 20th day of November 2012.
Hi, my name's Larry Burgess, and I've been studying the history of Redlands for more than 40 years. When a town is more than a century in age, it's natural to want to reflect on what's made it successful. The focus of this production centers on the amazing history of Redlands volunteerism and philanthropy, and how together they have made such a marked impact and important contribution to what we are about as community and to what we must focus upon for the future.
One of the things that we really try to do as historians at Smiley Library, it's not just about telling this is what the history was, and on this date this happened, and on this date that happened, because those things are all important and they give you the context. But what the real goal is that we know that if people understand local history in a way, and they understand their community, and they feel like they're a part of their community, then they will be better citizens. And as we've seen, Redlands is filled with great citizens. I think it is no coincidence that Redlanders are also very close to their history. So we use history to connect people to community and make better citizens.
In ninth grade, I took a local history course from Tom Atchley at Cope. Cope Junior High it was at the time. And I think that was my first real introduction to the fact that there was history specific to this area as opposed to, history of the United States or history of the world. So that was when I really started to understand all the things that had come into play before the things that we have now, and how people like the Smileys and the Kimberleys and people like that really laid the foundation for what was to come.
I found as a 7th, 8th, and 9th grade teacher back in the 70s, history comes alive if you connect history to the local community. If I talked about the Smileys, if I talked about the Serrano Indians, if I talked about the geography of this area, the rivers, the mountains, and made connections, that suddenly history came alive. It wasn't something that just happened on the East Coast back in 1776.
And of course, knowing Larry Burgess, I feel like history sort of just, exudes from him. It's like the little cloud of dust around Pigpen, only it's history around Larry.
Frank Brown and Ed Judson, Connecticut boys, named Redlands for its adobe red soil in 1881. 32 years old with Judson and 26 with Frank Brown, these young men possessed a unique vision.
We could tell the stories that need to be told, that deserve to be told, about the people who came before us, the people who created a community from nothing, which is a remarkable story in and of itself. I mean, that is amazing. To say, Judson and Brown and others who first came to this part of the valley in the late 1870s, or they came in the early 1880s, and so you guys say, hey, let's build a community, right? And they found the Redlands colony that was basically fields of brush and oak trees occasionally, and largely uninhabited. And they made it into this. I mean, that is just almost unreal to me, that something like that. The vision that is required of the earliest people all the way through to the present, that vision is something that not everyone is capable of. But these people were, and our community is the result.
Well, I think first of all, we need to talk about what Redlands is, what it really started off with, Judson Brown, and how they went with such a nice township in the middle of this valley that made it work. We had a number of things going for us. We had water, we had people wanting to come here.
Okay, the most important thing about Judson and Brown is their legacy in terms of water. And that legacy is the connection to the water system that receives the water in Redlands every day. The original ditch is still followed. The Bear Valley Water Company and the City of Redlands own more water rights than any other community here in Southern California in terms of the Santa Ana River and Mill Creek. And those two water sources give us the best source of water for all of Southern California.
So if we talk about historic things in Redlands, that happens to be one that people tend to forget about, and that is our water system for irrigation, which is a beautiful piece of engineering that people put in 100 and some odd years ago.
What's the name of that stream that goes down through that area there, huh? What do they call it?
Is it the Zanha or the Sankey?
It's the Sankey, Larry. You know it and I know it.
Okay, the mispronunciation of the Zaha. How do you get an S, a K, and a Y out of the word spelled Z-A-N-J-A? Well, it's simply because you had farmers who didn't know any Spanish at all, and of course misspelled in the water records, and then after you get used to saying Sankey, guess what? It's a whole lot easier than saying Zaha, but Zaha is really the correct pronunciation of a name that goes back to 1819 in Redlands. I called it the Sankey because I grew up on the banks of the Sankey at the Crafton Dairy.
The campaign for a YMCA in Redlands was very important because it was the seeds of that campaign that created the concept of civic philanthropy in Redlands. The first dinner, hosted by a group of women, raised money for the Y building. And once that building was created, it housed civic events, it housed dances, it housed celebrations, it housed the first library that citizens used. And from that came all that followed of civic philanthropy in this town. The late Frank Moore, co-editor of the Redlands Daily Facts, once wrote that Judson and Brown founded Redlands and gave it its form, but it was the Smiley brothers, when they came in 1889, that gave it its soul. Those two identical twin brothers, well past 60, came to winter here in Redlands, and they were determined to give it a sense of culture, a sense of purpose, a sense of beauty, and enhance that sense of place that became so important to the Redlands future.
It seemed to just be their nature to do that. I don't know why. I mean, they were Quakers. That doesn't mean that they were philanthropists, but they any place they did, they didn't want to develop it in the sense, in the modern sense of making a lot of buildings and making a lot of money. That wasn't their idea. Their idea was always to preserve the natural environment in that area, and not only to preserve it, but to make it available for others to enjoy.
Seeing the success of the private library and reading room in the YMCA building, Alfred Smiley determined that there should be a public library in Redlands. And so he led the campaign of a group of citizens to create a library for Redlands, and in 1894, it became a reality. But already by 1895, it was outgrowing its headquarters in the Y building, and so Alfred asked his brother Albert, "Wouldn't you give the people of Redlands a library?" And so Albert, always spending ahead of his income, decided that he would give the library and a park in downtown Redlands. And in order to accomplish that goal, he had to borrow money from the banks to finish it. It's the only time in the history of Redlands that a major philanthropy came on borrowed money. It so touched and impressed Andrew Carnegie, Albert's good friend, and Carnegie at that time the richest man in America, that when he came to visit the library, he noted, "It's the first time I've ever been in a library that I haven't built." Carnegie had already given 2,000 libraries. But then he looked at the press and said, "It's really Albert Smiley you should be honoring today. I only gave the money I had away. He went out and borrowed to give his gift of love." In terms of philanthropy, not only did Albert Smiley borrow the money to build the initial building, but then he went ahead and borrowed additional money in 1906 to build the reference wing to the library. And then, following his death, he asked that his younger brother Daniel provide a wing for the children in 1920. And then the Smiley's good friends, the Lyon family, went ahead and built the Lyon wing and the Stack wing to the library. It was not until 1990 that the citizens of Redlands, through a bond system, would expand the building to its present size and look. In looking at the photo, I'm trying to think of which one is Alfred and which one is Albert, because these identical twin brothers had a very playful sense of humor, and they would often change the watch fobs that people used to identify them with the other one, so that you were really not talking to the one you thought you were. They gave to this town a great, great legacy. It was that of a sense of philanthropy, a sense of obligation in a positive way to make this community better by sharing your resources. Of course they knew that not everyone had disposable income to give, but they also knew that those that did should. And so they set the bar high, whether it was borrowing, as in Albert's case, to give to the library, or whether it was getting people together to form the first agency to help people and families in need, and serving as its first president. We know it as the Family Service Association. The Smiley brothers quickened the pace and made sure that the tempo of philanthropy would come to mark Redlands as one of its most distinctive features and a notable one of communities in Southern California.
You figured it out. How do you make people like that? You don't. They just are. That's the way God makes them, I guess.
The citrus industry played a huge role in Redlands. It brought all kinds of people. And the story of those people, the grove owners, the grove workers, the packing houses, the workers of the packing houses, and those that worked for the railroads that distributed the oranges, is an important and vital story in Redlands history.
Now I'm like third generation in the farming business here, and I've got my dad's old farming business, and I try to, the orange business is a dwindling business, but it's part of my heritage. It's part of the city's heritage. It's big for the city. The city was, I think in the 50s, was the largest naval producing area in the world. And that was in the 50s. And so, you know, I know it's going by the wayside, but the only way we can keep it is the city's trying to keep a couple of 100 acres, and people like me and different people that own a few acres of citrus and farm it and do it right. That's the only way we're going to keep the citrus around here. I planted a couple of citrus groves for the city, or helped plant them. I donated that one for my dad at Jacinto Memorial Park there up on Ford, and I just helped out with another one up on Highland Avenue. I've done some garden stuff for the city gardens, and I've just done a little bit of everything. Whenever I get the chance to help, I try.
Education had a central role and important part from the very beginning when Frank Brown and Ed Judson began giving land for public schools. In those years that followed, Redlands people got behind in various organizations and support groups, and today the public schools rank high in the affection and support factor of community.
You know, education is a cornerstone of this community, and that's such an important cornerstone for a healthy and strong community. And so that's so critical that as a community we recognize that it's not just about kids in the classroom, but a solid public education provides for the entire community across, again, all the generations and all the levels. Because then we'll have those good parents, and we'll have those same kind of people that want to coach the ball teams and the Sunday school classes and be involved in their children's upbringing and have the wonderful, rich experiences that our children are afforded here.
By 1907, Redlanders wanted a university. And so the American Baptists were looking to create a college in Southern California. And here's how they looked at the landscape in 1907. The Methodists were at USC, and the Disciples of Christ were at Chapman, and the Congregationalists were at Pomona, the Presbyterians were at Occidental, the Roman Catholics were at Loyola, and they kept saying to themselves, where are the Baptists? To Redlands, they came and said, you had everything in this town. Presidents have come, you have millionaires, you have orange groves, you've got beautiful homes, you have culture, you have a fine library, but you don't have a college. And so in 1907, the people of the town matched a gift of the people of the Baptists, and the University of Redlands was born.
Well, we're fully accredited, and I should say also that we have been rated among the 10 most beautiful campuses in the United States.
This past couple of weeks, we celebrated the inauguration of a new president of the University of Redlands, Ralph Kunzel. What a great day that was, and what an incredible ceremony it was. But besides that, when you look at the campus of the University of Redlands, it's spectacular. When you look at the national attention that the University of Redlands gets, when you look at the quality of the students at the University of Redlands, when you look at the quality of programs at the University of Redlands, it's still a great source of joy for both of us and pride to see how wonderfully that institution is doing and what it does for this community. As Ellen and I were on the campus, and as we were in the chapel in particular, the chapel has been transformed back to its original glory and beauty.
Think of why Redlands is unique and special. I really believe in much of our history, you will see it's the University of Redlands that has such a great influence on why we're just a very special city. I did go all through my grade school and high school here in Redlands and graduated from the University of Redlands, so I'm a hometown product.
The jewels in the crown of Redlands, which includes, the hospital, certainly the library, and certainly the university. Many others are out there, and many other people would have additional jewels to add to that crown. Redlands Community Hospital continues to be an independent organization. It's as much an asset to the community as the library, the university, and like the library, it is part of the community and owned by the community.
This is the Weiser building, so it gives us a lot of pleasure that it has our name attached to it. A lot of programs here. So it's an educational building for nurses, for doctors, for community, for blood drives, for all of those kinds of things. We even had a wedding here once.
The background history to the Redlands Bowl is a poignant story. Grace Stewart Mullen from Tennessee, moving to Redlands, sees the need for relief from a hot Redlands summer day. If you could live through the day into the night, she thought you should have free music, professional music, beautiful music. And so she created the concept that today we know as the Redlands Bowl. She also talked to Clarence and Florence White, noted philanthropists in town, and said we need a building so these productions can even be more wonderful to see. And so Clarence and Florence White gave the Redlands Bowl building, which we call the Procellus, in 1930, and at that speech of dedication, Clarence White challenged everybody to remember that a community is only made better if you are impelled to do good for it and not compelled.
It's a very long story, but I think to put it briefly, I would say that my urge to contribute something toward world peace and universal brotherhood through music prompted me to begin, even without an organization, in 1924. Our beloved friends, Clarence and Florence White, realizing our great need for such a building, gave it to us in 1930, and we've enjoyed it very, very much throughout the years. We have had 1,115 concerts, admission-free concerts, in this beautiful place. And it was a beautiful little park that the Smileys gave to Redlands. And earlier, in about 1912, it was prepared for seating, and a few band concerts were given here, but was very little used until we began in 1924. Oh, it's been a glorious experience. I thank you.
When Redlands was still a raw community and most of its land undeveloped, there were people advocating parks. When Albert Smiley gave the downtown park that we now know as Smiley Park in Redlands, a lot of people at the time said, well, this is foolish. Why do people need a park in downtown? Who will use it? People have their own grand lawns and backyards for parks. There's no need for a public park. Today, of course, it's a major fulcrum and civic force downtown with all kinds of cultural events that take place there. We've lost parks as well. Canyon Crest Park, or Smiley Heights as it was popularly called, that the Smileys had hoped would become ultimately owned by the city. Didn't happen in 1963. It was subdivided. And yet other parks would come. With the loss of Smiley Heights, and with it the subsequent civic vision, another threat came to a park to the east, beautiful Prospect Park. Citizens recoiled in horror when a group of local businessmen proposed to turn that gem of botanical wonder into a mobile home park. And so they mobilized. An election was held and was lost, but still citizens didn't give up in acquiring it for the city. And private philanthropy saved the day, along with a federal grant. And then Mary Kimberly Shirk, the owner of the beautiful Kimberly Crest Mansion, offered to put the house and her grounds into a private foundation that would adjoin the park if the citizens would support and save Prospect Park. It was done, it succeeded, and once again, vision and private philanthropy triumphed, and Prospect Park remains one of Redlands' great gems. Additional philanthropy afforded theatrical, meeting spaces, and continued improvements that followed. Caroline and Olivia Eagleston Phelps Stokes came from a very wealthy family in the East. Redlands was their winter home, and ultimately they made it their permanent residence. And after Caroline died, Olivia wanted to do something to memorialize her sister. She left a beautiful acreage off of Sunset Drive to be known as Caroline Park, and it was to be a monument for native California plants. Nothing was done about it for many years. And then in the 1980s and early 90s, led by Dr. Harold Hill and a number of other civic veterans, this park not only came to bloom, but came to be one of the great botanical treasures in all of the inland area. So when Highway 99 was the main road through Redlands, the first thing that people came to see was the city dump at the entrance. Jenny Davis, a redoubtable and important civic worker, just couldn't stand that thought, and she was determined to change the dump into a park. Unfortunately, she died before she could do it, and her friends, the members of the redoubtable Contemporary Club of Redlands, determined that they would create a park in her memory. They did. And that park is below grade in a sunken level today as you go on Redlands Boulevard, causing George Hinckley, the city engineer at the time, to murmur and mutter in disgust, if those damned women hadn't come around, we'd have had that dump filled to grade. Robert Watchorn had come from the East, and he was at a dinner party here one night at a private home. And he had talked that he had a bust of Lincoln, and he wondered what to do with it. It was a very famous sculptor that had done it. And they said, well, you ought to give it to Redlands. And from that simple discussion came the goal to build a museum to Lincoln and the Civil War. And because he was good friends of the Smileys, living in New York, and he knew them well, he wanted the library to manage the museum. And And that's how we have the only library, museum, research center, and memorial to Lincoln west of the Mississippi River.
Well, Robert Watchorn had acquired a bust of Abraham Lincoln, a famous bust by the sculptor George Gray Barnard, one of only two known to be in existence in the world. The second, by the way, was lost as a result of World War II in France. But Robert wanted a home for his bust, and originally they conceived upon the idea of building an addition to Smiley Library to house the bust. But Robert thought, no, Lincoln was essentially an aloof character, and that he needed a separate building of his own. So, after the tragic loss of Emory Ewart Watchorn, the Watchorn family decided to very generously donate the Lincoln Memorial Shrine to the people of Redlands in 1932. Well, Robert Watchorn realized that people do not live on just taxes alone, and that he was hoping that the city of Redlands would be able to support the building as much as they could. But he realized a separate endowment would be required to really do the sort of programming and events that the people of Redlands really deserved for their Lincoln Memorial Shrine. So in 1937, he established an endowment for the building, and that has helped us with programming and operations, the acquisitions of material. And we also have a great support group known as the Watchorn Lincoln Memorial Association that was founded later, and they provide funding for the acquisition of unique items such as Civil War artifacts, or even a manuscript written by Abraham Lincoln. Those are pretty rare, and we're fortunate enough now to have more than 35 of them at the Lincoln Memorial Shrine. And we continue to get some wonderful, generous donations of material, flags, artifacts, all given to us by people in our community. I've had the privilege of serving on an organization known as the Lincoln Forum, a group of Lincoln scholars and enthusiasts that meet around the country. And as a result, the Lincoln Memorial Shrine is known nationally to be an institution where people can do research on the life of Abraham Lincoln. We have researchers ranging from Pulitzer Prize-winning historians like James McPherson down to elementary school students who are seeking more information about the life and times of Abraham Lincoln and looking for connections, perhaps, between their lives and seeking inspiration from Lincoln's life.
And so there was this idea to create an actual pilgrimage to the shrine of Lincoln. So it kind of makes sense when you think about it as a pilgrimage and a shrine. But what that does is it takes, both then and today, young people from all over the region, boys, girls, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Campfire, whatever organizations, it's open, I believe now, to many different groups. And it gives them an opportunity to experience Lincoln and the Civil War in a way they would never be able to do in any other community, because it doesn't exist. So to bring all of these young people together for the common purpose of honoring our 16th president is very special. And that they can all march together down the street, and they can go to the Redlands Bowl and hear a program about why Lincoln is still important today. And then to carry a wreath from the bowl over to the bust of Lincoln in the shrine. That kind of experience, I suspect, doesn't happen for young people very often, and it can be a very important and moving one.
Individuals that have grown up in this area, that have come to the Lincoln pilgrimage, and the youth, we share in the presentations about Lincoln and what he gave. And we encourage them, as they're looking at their Scout promises and their Scout laws, to think about what they would be able to do as leaders in our country, using the values that President Lincoln has shared with us.
We're able to help young people appreciate in many different ways what Lincoln's contributions were to the country, the importance of the Civil War, and how it continues to affect the United States and the citizens within it today.
In many ways, when seeking to study the people involved in the Civil War, when you visit the Lincoln Memorial Shrine, you really almost need to go up to Hillside Cemetery to understand the immediacy of it, the directness of its involvement, and those who actually experienced it. There on those headstones are veterans, both Union and Confederate. There are those who were enslaved and who came to California for a new life and are now buried there. There are those who started Redlands old enough to remember people who fought in the American Revolution, in the War of 1812, in the engagement with the war in Mexico. There are those who fought in the Spanish-American War, for which Redlands gave a giant parade. There are the graves of those who died in World War I, and then those who would come with World War II, and Korea, and Vietnam, and the later engagements that mark our own time.
Larry and I both are Vietnam veterans, so we served our country, and I can remember the big party that was at the DeCento house when Larry came home. To speak of the veterans, just very, very quickly, that's a big, big deal for me, and for the last 10 years I've been the Master of Ceremonies for the Veterans Day, and the torch down there, the eternal flame, is really something that's very, very meaningful. In fact, we have some friends on that wall, and it's kind of a sad thing to think about. But these people that were willing to give their life, and many of us that have come home, I think is really, really a big, big deal. And I think it's something that we all acknowledge as something that Redlands people are very, very proud of, our veterans and our heroes that didn't make it back.
I, some time ago, said I wanted to have a Veterans Day parade. When we started looking at the 125th anniversary, and we started paying attention to the significant date in November when the town was incorporated, the alignment seemed to come, and I got into a discussion with Paul Foster. And you have to be careful with Paul, because work just falls off of that guy. And we discussed the fact that the incorporation was very close to Veterans Day. And wouldn't it be nice to have a parade? If you look at some of the pictures we've got around this city, around the library and upstairs in the City Hall, you'll see various parades that we've had over the years. And the saying was that the people of Redlands love to have a parade. We'll always have a parade for any purpose at all. So I thought to Paul, what do you think about having a Veterans Day parade to end the year of celebration? And typical of him, he said, would you do that? And so here I am. I have to give credit to the Kiwanis. Because of their experience in the Christmas parade, Larry Statler, Tom Nelson, Jack Stewart have all stepped up to give me the advice that I need to do what we have to get done. It's difficult to get someone to understand what a person who puts their life at risk goes through. There are certain assumed rewards that you expect, or you rationalize that this is important. I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing it for those who come after. And so to step up and say thank you is very important.
As the years rolled on, many of the events of joy and jubilation and happiness took place in another form, and that is fundraisers. And these fundraisers are important to the community in establishing better support and more infrastructure for much beloved charities that have come to mean so much to the fabric of Redlands' cultural and social life.
People have asked me what it's like to do the 4th of July for 40 years, and you don't, as I've told a number of people, you don't do it for 40 years, you do it for 1 year, 40 times. Well, it can't happen in just any town, because one of the big things that makes this happen is that there's a number of people that want to be involved. And when I think of the people on the Redlands 4th of July committee, Yeah, I've been here 40 years, but Tim and Micah Maroney have been around, I'm guessing 27 or 28 years. Curtis Allen, the director of the 4th of July Band, has been doing this for 33 years. Some of the newer people, like George Barrich, he's coming on his 5th year, but as he said to me the other day, he said his wife told him that he could get off any committee he wanted except the 4th of July, because she likes where she gets to sit on the 4th of July, and her family and all of us, love the show, and so we go. So Redlands has a lot more people who are willing to get out and take their time and make an event like this happen. The biggest thing that I will tell volunteers, especially when somebody is new, is that if you do all of the work and you're involved in what's happening, when the event happens and we're about 3/4 the way through the fireworks show and you're sitting there thinking about how neat this is, it is all of a sudden going to occur to you that there's 14 or 15,000 people sitting around you that you helped have that special moment that they're having, and it's up to you to make that happen. I mean, that's just the people that are there at the stadium. The police department tells me that there's another 14 or 15,000 people within a 6 or 8 block radius around the stadium. So when you realize that it's almost half the population of Redlands that's affected by that evening and that event, it's a big deal. So get a good feeling for doing it.
We formed a committee. Let's have a bike race. Well, you get together the people. You think, what are the pieces you need? You need, you're going to need volunteers to marshal and to register people. All those pieces, you're going to need lots of volunteers. You're going to need people who know how to run a bicycle race.
I learned a lot of it from Carol. We had a very interesting talk when we first got going, and I didn't quite get the whole volunteer thing. And she quickly explained to me how each nonprofit that's up here needs to be able to, that's involved in the Bike Classic, needs to be able to raise funds to support the organization. That's all part of the community effort. And it was kind of a learning experience that I gained from her, that this is how it needs to work so that everybody can benefit. And I get it.
One of the advantages to doing a bicycle race as a community event to bring people to town was that you didn't need a venue, so to speak. You didn't need an arena, you didn't need a stadium, you didn't need a track. You needed beautiful streets that would be challenging and interesting, and a place for people to ride their bikes competitively. So that's the good news. The challenging news was you had to make it safe for both the riders and the spectators. You had to make it possible for people to get around town while this was going on. If I had to guess, I'd say the first day we ran the race, we probably needed somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 volunteers. We weren't sure how that would go, but we put things in the newspaper, we spoke to service clubs, we did everything we could to encourage people to come out. And almost 30 years later, there's still enough people to volunteer to run this event.
Carol's a great project leader. I mean, she started so many things in town, and I learned from her that somebody has to take the lead. But in Redlands, if someone will take the lead, someone else will follow, and someone else will join, and the project will grow. It's worked at the Bike Classic for me. It worked when I was with Redlands Baseball. It worked with the race team and everything else I've ever been involved in this town. There's plenty of people that are willing to help. There's plenty of people that will give of themselves in this town if you give them the opportunity and some direction. And I think that's very cool.
People open their homes, fix food, drive these people around. There are instances in this town where people leave their homes when the cyclists come. We're going away for the weekend. Here's the key. You know where the fridge is. There'll be food or there won't be food, whatever. And you know, it's one of the unique things about our race. I would from time to time get contacted by other communities saying, you guys have a really successful race. Would you mind coming and talking? We're thinking of organizing one, and we'd like to just sort of pick your brain. What are the pieces? What do we need to do? And one sticks out in my mind. I went to Arizona, was a guest one time of a community, and they were really keen about doing a cycling event. And I think it kind of stopped them cold when I told them how many volunteers they needed. And they had a similar problem of not having big hotels. It was a small town. And I told them that we put people up in their homes. And I think when I left, they were still shaking their heads. You know, well, really? How did you make this? How did these? And I said, well, you know, it's what happens in this town. People get a passion for something, and there are no mountains too high. They just, let's figure out how we can do it.
We are the longest running stage race in the United States to date. We are a nonprofit event that is funded mostly by businesses and community groups from this town. So when one leaves, another comes in, and we have a 30-year run, and no one else has been able to do that.
I remember one time our city manager, John Holmes, said to me, we started the Bike Classic, and then shortly after that, the Run Through Redlands started. And he said to me one day, you know, we just got word that a service club wants to do a Run Through Redlands, and it's a great idea, and we should support it. But you know what? I think this is the last thing that we can do with volunteers in this town. I think that just has to be it. Don't you think we should draw a line? And I thought, well, good luck with that. Because this community is going to have different ideas, possibly, than you do. And there's been no end to it. I mean, it just, we are innovators. We're dreamers. We're people who see this place as just too special to not continue to make more special.
From the very beginning, business was supportive of all Redlands volunteer and philanthropic activities. One particular case comes through the Board of Trade. Today we call it the Chamber of Commerce. At the turn of the 20th century, when Joe Thaman lost both arms in a severe electrical accident, the business community of Redlands rallied round him. They supported him through many surgeries and later helped create a business for him, which became Thaman's Cigar Shop, a favorite gathering place. Ever since businesses began in Redlands, there was a sense of support from the business community, not only for its own, but for the volunteers and philanthropists that came to want to make Redlands a better community. The business partnership was hand in hand with the growth of Redlands as a town.
Perhaps our theme is philanthropy and volunteerism, and you have to start with the business community because that's always where it starts. When people are asked to give, it's almost always a knock on the door of the business community. There isn't an organization, a service club, an athletic group that doesn't begin with the business community, whether it's support, whether it's a gift certificate, whether it's a basket, whether it's good old-fashioned elbow grease. They need our support, and never does that door get shut in their face. The likes of Beaver Clinic, Kaiser, the Redlands Community Hospital, certainly those are the big ones that you see their names over and over and over again. But then there are also small businesses that oftentimes will step up. This business community is probably one of the most philanthropic giving that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime, frankly. And I think that's what makes Redlands so special, or certainly the business community so special.
I think it's important to give back to the community to make it a better place for everybody. I think if everybody's taking from the community and not replenishing and giving back to the community, it's going to be a place that we're not going to want to be associated with. There's a reason that I'm in Redlands, not someplace else. And it's because I see it as a place where I enjoy being, not only when I'm at work, but I enjoy being here and other activities. I like to go here out to dinner. I like to be around the people and some of the activities that the city puts on. I enjoy going to the movies here in Redlands. I love shopping in town, giving back in that way. But I enjoy being here, and I think it's important to give back, because the more people that give back, the better it is for everybody.
With the beginning of Redlands' first newspaper in 1887, Scipio Craig's Citrograph, the support for Redlands' activities, and especially for major events celebrating the founding of the city of Redlands, began. And other newspapers would take it up, most notably, of course, the Redlands Daily Fax.
The Redlands Daily Fax was founded in the, I would say, the second year of the city's incorporation by a man named Edgar Howe. And he said, when he founded it, this city needs a newspaper that will document the history of the city from the beginning. And that was the mission of the paper. So now that I am responsible for this publication, I feel like that is my charge, to help document the history of this community for all time.
Dr. Larry Burgess had told us when we first bought the business that we had inherited a stewardship, and that Citrograph being the oldest business in Redlands, that we had a responsibility to make sure that it endured through the years. And so we've really taken that responsibility to heart.
In addition to that, when we started talking to Richard Cottle, the previous owner, about buying the business and taking over the business, he basically sat us down and said, this is a big responsibility, and if you're going to be successful, you need to embrace this town, and the town will embrace you back. We had discussed that eventually we wanted to do something and give back to the community, and both of us, when we went to school, we got assistance, both through scholarships and other means from other people. So about 6 months after we bought the business, Richard passed away, and we decided, why are we waiting? Let's see what we can do. Mm-hmm. And so the first scholarship was founded in his name, and it continues today, and it's just grown from there. And the scholarships go to the University of Redlands students.
From the first building of the Kingsbury School in the Redlands colony, the locals evinced a strong interest about youth and youth's future. Over the years, as Redlands developed as a city, so did the population of young people. And today, there are a number of activities, a number of service clubs, a number of private organizations, a number of charities that all seek to help enhance the quality and the safety of the young people of this community.
One of the great things about being a service club member in Redlands is the fact that we do get to work with the younger generation, young kids. Our Kiwanis Club, we put a thing together each year where we go to Kohl's to buy them back to school clothes. And to see the look on these young people's faces, because they might not have gotten a new shirt, new pair of pants, to go back to school. And one of the biggest rewards is to see the faces of these young people and the gratitude that they have. That's why we do it. That's why there's all these different service clubs in Redlands, is because we really want to touch their hearts, make a difference. You know, a lot of people say, what difference does it make? Well, it makes a difference to that child. Is that enough? If you can make a difference in one person, you can inspire them to do something great. And if you inspire that young person, someday that person might be a great leader to lead this country, to inspire other children. as we were inspired as a young kid. You know, I think we could all pretty much name one person that really inspired us to do something great. And hopefully, you know, I'd like to see people get out there and do something great.
When I was a youngster, I remember I was attending Franklin Elementary School. And at the time, my family, my folks and myself were living on East Campus, just on the other side, the east side of the University of Redlands. It was a great community to grow up in. It was great, tons of kids, lots of things to do. But I remember we didn't have a lot of money. My folks were both working parents and within the community of Redlands. And you know, there just wasn't extra money. I didn't know that at the time because I had a great family and a great upbringing, and they did everything possible within their means to provide for me. But one day, I was on the playground at Franklin Elementary School, and I'll never forget the teacher. His name was Mr. Radke. He wasn't my teacher. He was a sixth grade teacher. He was kind of a drill sergeant type of a guy. He was really kind of cool. But one day, Mr. Radke approached me and he said, Rochford, he said, you need to meet myself and Mr. McIntosh after school today. Mr. McIntosh was the principal. I said, okay. And I thought, well, gee, what of many things have I been doing that, you know, I've been busted on or called on? As it turned out, we met in Mr. McIntosh's office, and they said, look, you're here today because there's somebody in the community that felt they wanted to do something for you. And they handed me an envelope, and within the envelope was a membership to the YMCA, and it was free gratis. I think that touched me and stayed with me, and that's probably one of maybe other things, but that was probably where it started if I were to look back and think about that. And the other side is that, look, when you're raised in the environment that I was raised in a great family and all, but still not having the means and watching other people have those experiences, maybe that has a bit too, that you kind of reach out and want to go for the underdog.
Since I come from a community that is more of the working community, I think a lot of what we're able to contribute is our own personal time, our volunteer time. We work, we raise our family, but we also want to be able to give back our time, and I think that's most important. Maybe you can't put a dollar on it, but through the example that myself and others have been able to do is we give of our time. We give of our time, whether it's coaching Little League, coaching football, working in the community, doing the community cleanups. I think those are things that you cannot put a price on. So I think if anything, we should all be able to do as much as we can in the volunteer area.
No, we helped one person. That was one of the reasons I wanted to belong to a service club. I never made a lot of money at City Hall. I didn't have a lot to give. We have people in this town who give money, and it's wonderful. I didn't have the money to give, but through my service club, I could give.
Service clubs or organizations in Redlands all kind of have their niche. There's some that focus on eyesight. There's others that focus on youth work, other specialty areas in town, special events and things like that. And it really doesn't matter which organization you're a part of because you're giving back to the community. The important thing is to be involved in the group that really suits you and makes you feel that you're giving something back and puts a smile on your face and helps others.
In 1987, an incredible thing occurred. The people of Redlands voted to tax themselves through Measure O in order to secure Redlands' future in open space and citrus heritage. And it passed by more than 70%. Today, more than 200 acres of grove are owned by the city. There are incredible open space parks and areas that were created, and our citrus heritage is guaranteed for the future. And so our own heritage becomes part of the future by the very existence of the city groves.
Measure O was a happening. It was an absolute happening. I credit it to Barbara Wormser, who was on the city council at the time. I'm not sure if it was only her idea, but she was a real visionary and had a very quiet way of getting things done. But Char Burgess, Larry Burgess, Pete Dangerman came in and helped us out. I'm trying to remember all the people involved, but there was this groundswell of enthusiasm to raise $8 million.
It was the first bond issue of that type to pass since Prop 13 in the state of California, which really was said something that people really believed in what we were doing. Even now, as we see Heritage Park coming to fruition, it's a reminder that sometimes you had to invest a little earlier, and then all of a sudden, everything evolves, and that's good.
Heritage Park is 18 acres of land that is owned, that is just below Barton Road, and it is adjacent to the Assistencia and the historic Barton House, as well as the Grove School.
And this piece of property was the very first property that we bought with that money.
There are 91 different unique groups that will be participating in this today. This is really just so pervasive in the community. Everyone is going to be here represented. It really shows the unity of our community.
Well, I'm out here trying to make a difference in my own community, trying to do my community service, trying to lead by example. And in order to make a difference in town, I feel that we need to do our part in Redlands, because this is my community and I love it. And I brought some kids out here with me to help. Okay.
With Youth Hope, we brought 15 kids to come out, and it's such a neat thing for them to be able to come back and say, thank you, Redlands, for all that you've done to us, or for us.
And one point that was particularly poignant to me is I just stood in spot and just kind of did a 360 in what was going on in the park, and it was the most amazing anthill of people.
We felt it was so important to the history of our community to have this park.
It's become a common buzzword these days to talk about partnerships and public and private relationships. Redlands, almost from the beginning, began partnerships between the public sector of government and the private sector of businesses and individual initiative and giving. Over the years, these contributions came in terms of capital improvements, in terms of buildings, in terms of programs, in terms of acquisitions, in terms of open space, and in terms of necessities that city budgets may not have been able to cover. Clarence White said it best, "No city lives by taxes alone. The nearer it comes to that, the more impoverished its condition." Believe me, without public and private, we wouldn't be what we are.
We started out as remodel, but it turned out to be a rebuilding of Station 1. It was a mess, and as we tore into it, we found out the destruction was deeper than we even thought. I needed money to make all of this happen, and so I went to the council, and I was told quickly, we don't have the money. So I went to our congressman, Jerry Lewis. I met with him over on Barton, and he said, that building's not earthquake-proof, is it? I said, no, sir, and it should be. He says, that's our end. So about a month or so later, I get a phone call from him, and he says, how about $750,000? Would that work for you? And I said, yes, sir, it will. Well, it got close, but it didn't cover the entire cost, and the city made up the rest. So we had the SOS committee. I remember Pat Gilbreth and Swin Larson and just a number of people stepped forward. Bill Hatfield from Hatfield Buick, a great many of people showed up at our meeting, and they said, we'll start gathering up some money. And that's a testament to Swin Larson and the philanthropy, the goodness of the people of Redlands who came forward and helped us meet that goal.
Many people ask what's special about Redlands, and I can tell you that we are most fortunate
that they joined, the community joined the fire department in the city in raising funds for our ladder truck. There was a period of time where I thought, boy, I bit off more than I could chew here, until a circle of community activist friends came together and put together one of the most remarkable fundraising projects that I've ever experienced. And it went from 0 to 60 in no time, and gosh, it's just amazing the amount of funds we were able to bring together to help make the community safer.
I mean, it was just fabulous to see this community focused on a fire truck, and everybody. I mean, the line that was formed of people wanting to participate in contributing money to the fire truck.
I've been a part of some neat things. The fire raised we called ourselves the Magnificent Seven. I mean, way overnamed. But it was a group of 7 people who helped Chief Fraser get that fire engine in the fire department. And what a great experience that was.
We were able to use our drug asset seizure money to acquire a small fixed-wing craft. And the advantage of doing that, there are lots of general aviation pilots in this area that fly those kinds of aircraft. So we put out the call for volunteers, and we had 50 pilots show up. That program is probably the cheapest aviation unit in the United States right now.
There's no way that we'd be able to provide the level of service that we provide to this community without those volunteers. They're doing park ranger duties, they're doing vacation checks, they're doing education of people in areas where crimes have occurred. The university is very good about giving back. In the past, they've given towards the ladder truck and the fire department. They've given towards they donated a police car in this last year, and they've done a number of things like that to be able to help us to overcome some of the fiscal constraints that the city's had and be able to still function effectively as a police department.
There's the 365. That's a program that the Citizens Volunteer Patrol has that ask the community to give $1 a day. And you'll see small businesses that will write that check for $365 and happily turn it over so that the police will have that additional support, that they will have those additional eyes on the road, they'll have those additional vehicles on the road to help them out. And it's just those simple little things, that little check for $365 that they'll write year after year after year after year.
Edith Parker Hinckley, who wrote the first history about Redlands in the 1950s, captured the essence of the community when she said people make the difference. And surely as you go through the entire panoply of our past, but quite frankly, in our present, it is people who make up the quality and the quantity of effort that makes this a town.
You know, you had the Smiley Brothers, who created such a lovely library, a lovely garden. They've donated many, many things to the city of Redlands. And then you go on the Watchhorns with the Lincoln Shrine, the Whites and Mullen with the Bowl. We had Mrs. Burrich, who contributed heavily for the Trinity Church. So there's so much heritage there, and those people really are our saints, if you really think about it. But then we can go farther than that. A lot of people said it stopped back then in the 30s, that no one has done anything since. But there's been a lot that has gone on in the last 25, 30, 40 years. When I think of people like Jack Brown, who is from the city of Redlands, and his Stater Brothers charities, which have done so much. Jerry Lewis, who represented us in Washington and has brought so much back to our area and particularly to Redlands. So there's a lot to be thankful for him. I think of Jim Appleton, when he has done so much to make the University of Redlands a landmark. You come to Redlands and you see that. It's really, really a great spot. Jack Dangerman has created an economy here in Redlands with the people that work for him, and the landscaping he's done throughout has just created something wonderful. I think of Tim Rochford, who has restored some of the buildings downtown Redlands and beautified downtown State Street, not to mention the Burrich Mansion, which he has brought back out of shambles into something that's just a wonderful place, and he gives it to the kids of our community. I mean, how can you go any farther than that? Those are our saints.
And those are our modern day saints, and I really, really mean that.
These people, I mean, Redlands is blessed not with just wonderful people as citizens of the community, but these people are engaged in the community. I mean, if you think about what philanthropy is, well, philanthropy is maybe writing a check, but something that you can't recover as you go along in life, and many people say it, is time. I mean, people in this community are philanthropic with their time. The volunteerism in this community is, I'm sure, second to none. And Redlands is known for the huge amount of volunteerism within the community. It's infectious how this community volunteers for so many different projects and activities, and there is an enormous amount of philanthropy when it comes to volunteerism that shouldn't be forgotten.
Although we do not find fault with anybody that writes a check, particularly a large check.
Writing a check by itself is okay.
Is okay. That's fine.
And if it weren't for our volunteers and the people who value these things, all of these things could be lost so easily. It really is fantastic to see. Look at the Conservancy. It didn't even exist, 20-some years ago. And yet, look what it's done for our community and how it's heightened people's awareness and made them think about not just structures, but open space and vistas and trails and our citrus heritage. All of those things have come about because we have a community of people who care.
One of the important additions to the fabric of Redlands citizenry are new people who come here and discover our town. They bring a vitality, an energy, and often a perspective that can broaden our own. They see us through others' eyes, and frequently they say to Redlanders, "Do you understand how special this place is?"
Oftentimes the most passionate people about making things happen and getting involved are the folks that just moved here. I moved in last year. What an amazing town this is. And I'm doing X. Or, we've got to make sure this happens or that doesn't happen, because do you realize what you have here?
We got involved in the run through Redlands, eventually joined the club, went to the theater, Prospect Park, hit all those places.
Y?
And then there's the YMCA. One day I'm driving back home and the sign at Prospect Park says, home tour for the YMCA as a fundraiser. And I said, honey, you should put up our home for the Y tour to raise money for the Y because you've done such a great job. And I kind of mentioned it offhandedly, but she calls. And a day later I hear, oh, we're on for the tour next year. And I'm like, wait, I just mentioned it offhandedly, but then meeting these wonderful folks.
And then I get a call from Shar, and she says, do you think that your husband would consider being on the Y board? And I said, let me tell you, he would be very much a willing victim. So she called, and they had a little meeting, and he met the others, and they welcomed him with open arms. So we are doing what we can, and it feels nice.
I can tell you that the pride everybody expressed in this community, very early on, I felt strange. It felt unusual because you hadn't lived here your entire life, or you hadn't had multiple generations. But I can tell you that if you apply yourself, this community will embrace you. It will make you feel like you've lived here a long time. So it's not necessarily about time, it's about commitment and caring about the community. And the folks that have been here a long time, they're real proud of that, but they're also quick to embrace people that show that they care about the community as well.
The 125th anniversary, I think, is important to the city of Redlands because we've grown so much in the last couple of decades since the last 100th anniversary celebration. And during that time, a great many people have come to the community and don't know the history of the community. So this was an opportunity for us to share that with them through the experience of celebrating our history, and to let them learn what a great community they've come to live in that has a very unique history, a very unique background, and is a very, very special place to live, raise your family, and run your business.
Let's return for a minute to Clarence White's words about the Redlands Bowl building that he gave, when he said that he hoped that citizens who do more for Redlands would find some form of recognition of thanks in that building. While we all know that we need funds and donations and legacies to advance our many charitable, cultural, and educational projects, it also needs volunteers to staff them. It needs volunteers to give the energy. And so when thanks is being offered, you have to think of all those that stop to tutor, to those who are helping in athletic events, to those who are helping in community events, to those who are helping those in need, those who may be passing by, or those who need a particular service right now. It is those who take the entire fabric of Redlands and make it into a whole quilt that we owe thanks to. All do their part. All make this a unique community, and all make the statement that we want it to be a great place to live and a community that says something about the quality not only of its citizens, but of the broad base of involvement that make us all proud to say, we live in Redlands.
There are a lot of high profile, and I'm sure these are the ones that you're interviewing, there are a lot of high profile, great people. Obviously, Jack Dangermond, who gives so much to the community, and Dr. Burgess, and I could go on listing these people who are recognized already. As a parent in this community, and as I say, I was the mom for the team and the choir booster and the band booster and a PTA, and I made the costumes for the school plays. I saw people who spent hours and hours, and I don't mean necessarily the stay-at-home moms, but parents who, in the few hours here and there that they weren't at work, they roll up their sleeves. They're out there planting the school gardens and volunteering in the libraries and helping the children practice their reading. And I'm uncomfortable singling out the famous philanthropists in this community because it goes all the way down to the people you will never hear of, the people whose names you're never going to get, who get up in the morning and give to this community.
My grandmother is one of those people. She's been very active in the community, and my mother as well, who has worked alongside with me at the animal shelter since I can remember, 8 years old. And she's just been such an inspiration because she works so hard, and just as hard as I do, if not even harder. That is why I volunteer. That is why I want to give back to Redlands, because it's been such a resource for me, and I want to help it become a better place so that I can look back and say, I did this for my town.
And now we come to the end of our presentation about our town, about Redlands. But you know, and I know, that it's not over, that you and I have the responsibility to determine our role today and what we want for our future. Above the Redlands Bowl, those words, "without vision a people perish," are carved. But we also know that a vision can perish without inspired people to carry it out. That's the inherent lesson for us. Where do we go next? And who will get us there?
I'm confident in the next generation that they'll be willing and able to step up. I think that we're doing really a better job than we have in the past in educating students about the history, about volunteerism. I mean, when I was in high school, there weren't that many opportunities to volunteer. Now that's a really central core, and in colleges also. I mean, the University of Redlands has a huge volunteer program. So I think we're teaching the importance of that. I think it's always hard because you don't see a Larry Burgess or a Tom Ashley, when they're 18, 19 years old. It takes a while for that to develop. I think the future is bright. I mean, I think it's up to all of us to pass it on to future generations. But I think they're standing there waiting for us to hand it to them.
I would like to identify some future leaders in the community and be a mentor as much as I can. I'm trying to do whatever I can to be the example and show what can be done, what needs to be done, to be able to mentor our future leaders of our community, because the youth is our future.
think what we do is we teach our young people about history, and that's a critical component of our history. And if they begin to understand the history, they begin to use it. If they go to the shrine, if they go to the library, if they go to the bowl, then they begin to have an ownership in it. It's theirs. The city owns it, and we are the city, the people are the city. And I think, but we need to bring the young people.
But we need to remember to ask them as well. We need to remember to not just say, well, we've got it handled. We need to remember to say, hey, we need you to be coming along, and it's one thing to say you're going to hand the torch, you've got to have somebody to hand it to. And so it's up to us to make those opportunities, be encouraging, and help them understand the value. I think we need to make sure that none of us of any age takes for granted what we have here.
I think if you can find work to do, or whether it's work that you're doing for as a donation for a cause, or whether it's whatever you do, if you can enjoy doing it, enjoy the people you're working with, that's worth a lot.
It takes everybody, the intellects, the hard workers, all the people in between, and we're all just passing through.
We've lived in this town for 50 years now, and my husband and I often comment on how fortunate we are that this was where we landed, because this is a town that has been very good to us, and we hope we've been very good to it.
I think that owning the Burridge and what the Burridge represents and stands for basically really is an explanation of how I feel about Redlands. And I don't live here. I mean, one who has been blessed as I have, that could do many things to help in a lot of areas, which we do. But I've chosen Redlands, and I think that probably just speaks loudly of my affection and my passion for Redlands, even though I haven't lived here in almost, 40 years? It's been 40 years?
I'm still here. As I say, I do like to go to my mountain cabin, but that's just to visit. I couldn't live up there. It's not Redlands. They don't have the bowl up there for a summer concert. They don't have Prospect Park for theater, and just Redlands.
I came from Huntington Beach originally, far too many years ago to admit to, and I came kicking and screaming the whole way, because how can you leave a beach community and come to the desert? My gosh, there is no place I would rather be. Redlands is the most remarkable community on the planet. What a discovery it was to find this place. And it will take a pine box to make me leave. There is no question about it. This term has been used and abused and overused about it, but it is a jewel. It is an amazing, amazing community to be from, to live in, to play in, to work in. It is an extraordinary city. And I hope that my children are just as proud as I am to be able to say something like that. I will forever be able to say I am proud to be from Redlands.
They don't owe me nothing. I'm just happy to live here and happy to be a part of this quaint little town, and good people, good people.
And it's been a love affair with the town ever since. And so my sons and my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren are here, and I hope that I don't have much time left, but I would like to believe that they get to enjoy just a little bit of what I've had. Oh, it's been a wonderful trip.
Traveling someplace else and then coming back to Redlands, it gives me the ability to compare Redlands to other places, and there is no town greater than Redlands in my opinion.
The only place I ever want to be, and I've been all over the world, literally, and just so glad when I come home every time.
These are the streets that I walked as a child. It's a library where I did puzzles and read Black Beauty on the floor. You know, this is the bowl where my grandparents took me as a 4-year-old to see my first musical. It's the high school where I fell in love for the first time. This place was my home. It was a lot of people's homes. So I hope that people are good stewards of it. I hope as we continue to go forward, there are people who continue to recognize the magic that is Redlands.
Accumulating on November 26, 2013. Culminating. Okay.
Arguably, this will be one of the nicest films that I've ever seen.
What are you and what are I? No, that's bad grammar. Let's try it again. Happy Quasquicentennial, Redlands. That's what you get when you're 125 years old, a term you can't even pronounce.
Quasquicentennial.
Something that ends with sesquicentennial in the end.
Hereby celebrates its and I'm supposed to say that word, anniversary.
Hereby celebrates its quasquicentennial.
Quasquicentennial. I'm sorry I couldn't be more help, guys, but I didn't practice like him for a week and a half.
For their vision and their commitment. That was, I should have picked that better, sorry.
Sticker off the orange.
Oh, was there a sticker? Oh God, a sun-kissed sticker. Oh, that was good. Hi, my name's Larry Burgess, and I've been studying the history of the city of Redlands for more than 100 Problem is, a lot of people would believe it.